மற்றொரு நிகழ்ச்சியூடாக சந்திக்கிறோம். இலங்கையில் கோர யுத்தம் நிறைவடைந்து இன்றுடன் 7 வருடங்கள் பூர்த்தியாகின்றன. ஈழ விடுதலை போராட்டத்தின் ஒரு கருப்பு புள்ளியாக கருதப்படும் இந்த முள்ளிவாய்க்கால் நினைவேந்தல் நாள் 7 வருடங்களின் பின்னும் வறுமையாக அனுட்டிக்கப்படுகிறது. பாதிக்கப்பட்டவர்கள் இன்னும் தமது இழந்த உறவுகளுக்காக கண்ணீர் சேர்த்து சிந்திக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். நீதி தேடல், பொறுப்பு கூறல் போன்ற விடயங்களில் அந்த மக்கள் இன்னமும் ஏற்காட்டப்பட்டுக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். சர்வதேச சமூகமாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் இருந்தாலும் சரி, இந்த நீதி கூறல் அல்லது பொறுப்பு கூறும் விடயத்தில் குற்றமிழைத்தவர்கள் இன்னும் தண்டனை முன்னிறுத்தப்படவில்லை. இன்று வரை எத்தனை பேர் இறந்தார்கள் என்றது கூட உத்தியோகபூர்வமாக அறிவிக்கப்படவில்லை. இந்த நிலையில் பாதிக்கப்பட்ட மக்கள் இன்னமும் கொடுமையான இராணுவ கெடுபிடிகளின் கீழ், குறிப்பாக 1,50,000க்கும் அதிகமான படையினர் இன்னும் வட மாகாணத்தில் நிலை கொண்டிருக்கும் நிலையில் உக்கிரமான காணி அபகரிப்புகள், பொதுமக்களின் காணிகளை சூறையாடுதல், இராணுவ பிரசன்னங்கள், இராணுவ அச்சுறுத்தல்கள், கடத்தல்கள், காணாமல் போதல் போன்ற நிகழ்வுகளுக்கு மத்தியில் தான் இந்த புதிய ஆட்சி வந்ததன் பின்னர் கூட தமிழ் மக்கள் இன்று வாழ்ந்து வருகிறார்கள். ஆகவே 7 வருடங்கள் கழிந்த நிலையில் இன்று இந்த நீதி போராட்டத்தில் அல்லது இந்த போர்க்குற்றம் இழைத்தவர்களை தண்டனைக்கு முன் கொண்டு வருவது அல்லது சர்வதேச சமூகத்தின் முன் நிறுத்துவது, இந்த சர்வதேச சமூகத்தினுடைய நிலைப்பாடு என்ன என்பதனை இன்றைய இந்த நிகழ்வின் ஊடாக நாம் ஆராய இருக்கிறோம். உங்களுக்கு தெரியும், பல முறை நாம் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியின் ஊடாக பிபிசியின் முன்னாள் செய்தியாளரும் ஸ்டில் கவுண்டிங் தி டெட் எனப்படும் இலங்கையில் போரினால் பாதிக்கப்பட்ட மக்களை இலக்காக கொண்டு அவர்களுடைய வாக்குமூலங்களை கொண்டு எழுதப்பட்ட ஒரு புத்தகத்தினுடைய எழுத்தாளர் பிரான்சிஸ் ஹாரிசன் அவர்கள் நம் நிலையக்கலையம் அழைத்திருக்கிறோம். அவர் இந்த பாதிக்கப்பட்ட மக்களை நேரடியாக சென்று அவர்களில் புலம்பெயர்ந்து வந்திருந்த போது அவர்களை கண்டு அவர்களை கதைத்து அவர்கள் முகம் கொடுத்த துன்பங்களையும் துயரங்களையும் அவர்கள் இயங்கிக் கொண்டிருக்கும் விடயங்கள் தொடர்பாகவும் கலந்துரையாடி இருக்கிறார். அது மட்டுமன்றி வெள்ளைக்கொடி விவகாரம் போன்ற விவகாரங்கள் தொடர்பாகவும் அவர்கள் ஓரளவுக்கு தெரிந்து வைத்திருக்கிறார். ஆகவே இலங்கையில் தற்போது காணப்படும் நிலைமைகள், பாதிக்கப்பட்டவர்களுடைய மனநிலை அல்லது பாதிக்கப்பட்டவர்களுக்கான நீதி தேடல் தொடர்பாக அவரிடம் இன்று நாங்கள் கலந்துரையாடி இருக்கிறோம். Francis, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
You know, it is 7 years ago that war in Sri Lanka came to an end. But how it was brought to an end has haunted Sri Lanka since then. Where do we stand after 7 years?
Well, I could very easily give you a very depressing response to that. But I think also sometimes it's important to look at where we have had achievements. And, 7 years ago, only a very few people knew some of what was going on in the war zone. And now 7 years later, I think it's pretty well established most of what happened during that period. And we've had a UN inquiry that's produced a report that's gone into considerable depth and named specific divisions of the military for some of the alleged war crimes. And so I think, the record has been set straight. Not completely and utterly, there are still things we're all discovering, but we have made some progress.
Do we know all? That's my next question.
No, definitely not. There's huge gaps in our knowledge about some of the incidents that happened still. And I mean, as per somebody who's been following this for several years and trying to fill those gaps, I know that very well indeed.
Is it due to the fact that it is a war without witness? Or it is the fact that it is fear psychosis or the intimidations are still on?
Both. I mean, when you say a war without witness, it's obviously not a war without witness, technically speaking. There are hundreds of thousands of people there who are quite able to witness what happened. But I think there are certain incidents where there may not be survivors alive, or if they're alive, they're still in Sri Lanka, they're not talking, or, they're in hiding in various other countries. So, for example, the last really big battle between the LTT and the army, the major sort of battle in Anandapuram, there are very few survivors from that battle. Most people, as far as we know, were killed or captured, and then who knows what happened to them. And I've met, I think, 2 survivors from that battle. because most people were killed or injured. So when you say a war without witness, there were certain incidents where nobody survived or very few survived, and that makes it very difficult to know some of the worst atrocities.
Francis, the government wanted to ensure that this is a war without witness. Most of the videos and the photographs that have come out is from the soldiers' own phone. Is it still possible that we are getting more materials from them?
Yes, I think so. There are lots of rumours floating about, as you probably know, in the diaspora, of various incidents of which there are video and people want to sell them, and then they don't materialise. So there's probably more evidence, photographic and video, floating around, and it may come out into the public domain, it may not in the future. But when you say that it's only the soldiers that really videoed things, of course that's not true about the war, because up until about 13th, 14th, 15th of May, a lot of Tamils were videoing what happened in the war, and there's a vast amount of footage and photographs, some of it not seen in public, from that period. And I think why that's important, beyond obviously being made into films and being part of advocacy processes, is that it seems that the photographers, and these were LTT photographers, photographed a lot of the dead bodies. And I mean, from a journalist's point of view or a TV person's point of view, they're useless because they're pictures of, severed heads and bits of bodies and so on. They're far too graphic to show on TV, but they could in the future have a huge importance in terms of ascertaining who's dead and who's alive. And, because there are so many missing people don't know for sure what happened to their family members. So when we move forward in Sri Lanka with some kind of process on the ground that tries to look into the issue of the missing, these photographs, which are in private hands, I mean, I have hundreds of pictures like this, and other people have them, and they're not collated in any central point, because in some ways they don't have value journalistically. These photographs, if there's a way of figuring out who these people are or showing them to family members who can identify the dead, it may bring some closure to people in Sri Lanka. But at the same time, of course, the photographs are incredibly distressing to look at, even if you don't know the people. And so, you have to balance that with the benefit if you actually identify somebody.
So in the process of accountability, these photographs will become vital, isn't it?
I think they'll have a value beyond what they have now, because they'll show, somebody actually dead in the war zone, and obviously the photographs have metadata, so you can ascertain when people died. I mean, I'm talking about lots of sort of women and children, and nobody important in the LTT or anything like that. And for all we know, they were killed in shelling or gunfire. It's not the sort of high-profile execution videos that I'm talking about. I'm talking about ordinary people killed. But there are a lot of those photographs out there, and they may be very important. And then also, just to let you know, I mean, I think there's a huge disconnect between the information that's available outside the country and what's inside. So, for example, the Ushalini, the girl with the mole on her face, who was with Issa Priya in those photographs that actually we released them in 2014, I think. She, when we put those photos online, unfortunately, we didn't realise that her parents, didn't know that she had been captured like that and then was dead, because the photographs of her lying dead with Issa Priya were already on the internet, so we'd assumed that they connected the two. But apparently, it was from that they discovered that she had died. Which is terrible, and obviously I apologise to them for finding out like that, but we had no idea. If we had, completely mortified by doing that. But it does show that, the photographs that we're sitting on abroad have some value to people in Sri Lanka who don't know what happened to their children or their loved ones.
I think along with that photograph, when she was brought in naked and then before being killed, there were several LTT cadres, senior cadres, and many of them have been identified. But are they in touch with you, the families?
You're talking about the photograph of the naked or semi-naked men in the pit.
Pond or something,
yes, they're in a sort of pit on the edge of the lagoon. And there's Issa Priya and Ushalini, and there's a young boy. We've identified the boy, and I think he then turns up dead later. And some people believe that some of those men are the same as in the Channel 4 execution videos. But it's difficult to tell, from just a photograph. It's very hard to know. I haven't been in touch with the family members of most of those people, but other friends who know them, who've identified them. So we've had witnesses who've said, oh yes, I know this one, etc.
Francis, 7 years down the road, there's still no official count of how many people have been killed. And Manna Bishop from Bishop Rayap Yosef, in giving witness to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, he said between October 2008 and May 2009, 146,679 people are missing. This includes death and the people who are missing. But he said he's got these figures from Kilinochchi and Mullaitivu government agent, and the UN has been officially handed over with regard to these particulars. And you published a book in 2012. It says still counting the dead. Is it still being counted, or do we know fairly how many have been killed?
No.
The UN says 70,000.
Yes, I mean, we don't know to the nearest 10,000 how many died in that war, which is incredible in this day and age, you know, of forensic science, of satellite technology, of, you know, statistics and data. It's extraordinary that we can't even round it up to the nearest 10,000. And you're talking about a pretty small area in a contained period of time. So, no, we don't know. We know 40,000 was the estimate given in the UN panel of experts, 70,000 by Charles Petrie in the UN internal inquiry in 2012, and beyond that, no. I mean, I myself was given World Bank data which estimated the population that was returning to the areas in the northern province in 2010, and that indicated well over 100,000 people missing from the data, from the government data before. I mean, the way that people have counted the dead so far has been how many people were there before, how many people survived, and a subtraction exercise. And of course, that's approximate. It's difficult because then people argue about how reliable the census data was under the LTT and whether the UN had accurate data for distributing rations. But I've spoken to UN officials about that because obviously the government and the UN sent rations, food, supplies into the Vani based on those statistics, and they would have been, there's a margin of error of 10-15%, but even that would be very high, but no more than that. It's not as if those figures were massively inflated, because they would know. And the UN had done surveys of school children and households, and so, they knew the kind of numbers of people there. And of course, the last survey would have been before the end of the war. So in the last year or so, the population would have gone up because people were having babies. And in fact, people were having babies. I was always surprised by how many people were having babies on the beach in the final months. And some of the women told me that the birth control pills didn't come into the Vani in the last year or so. Okay. So that's one reason why they got pregnant. And so there's all those people coming, being born that bump the numbers up. And then, yes, there would be some people leaving, trying to escape. But before September 2008, it was pretty difficult to get out, as you know. I mean, there was a pass system.
All doors closed.
Yes, it was very difficult for large numbers of people to get out. So that wouldn't have made a huge difference to the numbers, because you'd have births and you'd have people trying to escape. But, they'd probably be more on the birth side. So the idea that the numbers are wildly inaccurate and you can't compare them is false.
I had government figures. I was reporting from Sri Lanka, as you know. The Media Center for National Security, the weekly briefings. Keheli Rambakola, at that time he was the government spokesman on the defense affairs. He said, we are feeding the terrorists who in turn kill us. So we send food for 70,000 people, which is not correct, but he still said that. And at the same week, I think it's towards April, same week, Foreign Secretary Paratha Kohana went on record saying that, no, it's 50,000. But when they closed the war, over 310,000 people came out of Vani. Yeah. So they are completely underfed.
Yes.
And you said they were in touch with the UN officials in counting the figures. So it's, the war has already, apart from the weapons and aerial bombardments, this kind of starvation also is a kind of war, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the UN panel of experts report outlines how they lied about the figures inside the Vani, the population figures, and used that to deny people food and medicine very clearly. It's very nicely set out in that report. There's no doubt about it that the government must have known there were more people than they said there were. And their numbers are a joke because so many people pour out at the end. And they had the assistant, the AGA there sending them data. They had other government officials who were collecting information and sending it out to Colombo.